Ladies and gentlemen, what the hell happens to be up? Today's episode, take a wild guess. That's right. It's brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. Let's go straight over to their website right now. I'm seeing the UFC banner. Now, UFC 300 just happened. I'm recording this the day before I go. This is going to come out the day after I get back. But UFC and Black Rifle Coffee have partnered. Black Rifle Coffee is the official coffee of UFC, and it looks like you can build your own bundle with a free gift with the purchase of 2 coffees, or you can use the code UFC300 for 30% off the first month in the coffee club. What else do we have? The sliding banner left and right, or sliding bar, I should say, with all of their roasts, apparel gear, coffee bundles, coffee samples, and their best sellers. These right down here, these company logo diner mugs, these things are legit. I also have one of these grenade mugs. It holds about 2 cups of coffee, which is absolutely perfect. And that's it on the business side of the house. My guest today, Barry Minkow. Before I get into it, last week's episode was about somebody who was at the top and then found their way to the bottom and is building themselves back. Barry's story falls into that as well. And thematically, episodes seem to come at me. It's not anything scheduling-wise that I put together. But next week's episode is going to be similar to a degree. Like, I don't want to say necessarily whistleblower, but the weekend or the week after that is also going to be similar. So, not to give too much away, but just to kind of explain how I do all this. It's not me trying to put them in that order. That's the order that they reach me. So, Barry's story, though. I'm going to just read this out loud so I don't get anything wrong. At the age of 16 years old, Barry started ZZZZ, 4Z, Best Carpet Cleaning Company in his parents' garage, which set him up to be one of the youngest self-made entrepreneurs in the nation. Later on, Barry found himself in hot water when it was revealed to all be a front for a massive Ponzi scheme with ties to the New York mobs. He served a total of 15 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to insider trading and tax fraud. And Barry has emerged from prison with a newfound purpose, dedicating his life to uncovering fraud, whether it's financial fraud or physiological fraud. He has since helped the government proactively identify 13 cases of financial fraud, totaling over $1 billion in victim impact. His story is pretty insane. What it doesn't say in that initial bio is he actually went to prison twice. That wasn't 1 sentence. That was 2, and 2 amounts of time spent in prison. He gets into that. So let's get into it. Episode 331 with Barry Minkow. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
So you're saying you can't be bald. You are the one who made the comment about a nose. I'll let that be, and then have a criminal record.
It's just it's the hat trick, Michael. It's the hat trick. You don't want that. So no, but I mean, I blame the feds because they could put Rogaine in the commissary and save the guy some dignity. But no, we have every kind of potato chip, but no Rogaine. But I digress. But anyway,
The prison commissary?
yeah, $320 a month is all you can spend. But I don't care how much the Rogaine was. You can get the minoxidil at Costco for like $19. They could have cut a deal. I could have saved my hair. At least that
$320 a month.
is all you could spend.
What are they selling there?
So I was a big mackerel tuna guy because I have terrible genetics and I was on a diet much of the time.
Yeah.
While my friends who ate honey buns with peanut butter on them looked 10 times better than me when we trained. But no, mackerel, tuna, you can get soups, chips, sodas. But, you know, pretty much. And then the cosmetic stuff, all but Rogaine you could get. Yeah.
Okay. And then how would you get money in your account? People put it in?
Yeah, you would have family, friends, but you would you have a limit on what you could spend. You know, it's $320 a month for across the board. Didn't include stamps, and it didn't include certain medical items like Advil and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, and you would wait. Now at Lexington, Kentucky, when I was there in 2011 and 2012, a prison, 1,300 people. We had 2,000. So commissary day, Andy, it was you started in the line at 9 a.m. and you sat down and you probably got in by 1. So when COVID hit, I remembered that. I was like, I'll wait at a grocery store. It's like commissary Wednesday at Lexington. So you would wait all day to get your turn to shop once a week.
Okay. I guess I hadn't even thought that they would limit the days. I would have assumed it was
Yeah,
every day.
every
but-
unit had their own days.
Okay. We should probably talk about how you ended up in prison. Maybe you started starting at the beginning might be the best way to unpack this for people.
Yes. I was 13 years old working for a carpet cleaning company. My mom was a telemarketer. So she was fantastic at getting leads on the phone for carpet, furniture, and drapery cleaning.
Was she just cold calling people?
Yeah, that was a big thing. Remember, no cell phones, late 70s,
Yeah.
early 80s.
I remember what you're talking about. Michael does not.
No.
He was born with an iPhone.
Yeah. So if you said, Michael, let's get a rotary phone, he'd be like, what the heck's a rotary
Oh,
phone?
I know what that is.
Yeah,
It's
but
right
if you,
next to the Rolodex.
but have you ever watched the YouTube videos of people from your generation
Yes.
trying to use one?
It's really
Right.
funny.
They're hilarious.
Right.
They literally can't figure it out.
No, I know.
Which actually you're not missing that much because, the iPhone's better.
It is. Excuse me. I am. You guys gotta have to excuse me. So
Yeah, you're fine.
yeah, the at the end of the cough thing, but sorry, wouldn't have missed this for anything.
No worries.
So if I cough you up, forgive me.
So your mom was crushing it. She's cold calling.
She's doing great, and she asked me to work there. I sounded like a teenage girl. I got leads and dates that in that order, and I was very good at selling. Hi, Miss Jones. Living room, dining room, hall, 3 bedrooms, $62.95. We're in your area. We move all the furniture, put it back with protective pads and blocks. We're licensed, bonded, and insured.
Where'd this sales ability come from? You think it just came to you naturally, or did you mimic your mom?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think some people are gifted in certain areas. You're a people person or you're not, extrovert. So I was just an extrovert, so it kind of came naturally.
Okay.
The lying, however, that was a learned behavior, and not the result of my parents at all. But
Yeah.
So then it was after school, summers, great job. I was making like $100 a week when you're 13.
Fantastic.
14, yeah. And then all of a sudden I started helping. So you have a guy goes out and cleans and sells the job, and you're his underling. You do the work, move the furniture, fill up the buckets. We had double vac machines. So the beautiful thing about it was I remember Mission Hills. I was with a guy, Joel, who was my mentor. Loved him. And he was a great salesman. And I was his helper. So I had just graduated from the phones to helping clean carpets. So by the time I started ZBest at 16, I knew the whole industry.
Yeah.
We were in Mission Valley. We sold a house, $62.95, $100 for Scotch Guard. At the end of the job, they looked clean because they were still wet. And he said, Miss Jones, your third largest investment, your house, your car, your carpets.
Oh, this guy's good.
I said,
He's got it down.
Michael, I was like, I got to write that down.
That's polished. He's used that line before.
So we want to Scotch Guard your carpet, keep them looking cleaner longer. And he sold them, said, look, measure it out. We sell by the square footage. We don't Scotch Guard under a sofa. You don't need it. $119. She said, fine. I was to go out, put a Hudson sprayer, put the Scotch Guard in, pump the sprayer, had a carpet rake. I forgot, went out to the truck, forgot to pack the Scotch Guard. $120 sale in $1979, $80.
Yeah.
I sat in the truck and cried. Joel wondered where I was, came out and he goes, what the hell happened? I said, I forgot the Scotch Guard. He goes, is that why you're crying? I said, yeah. He goes, dude, get that Hudson sprayer, put a little bubblegum deodorizer in it and water. She'll never know the difference. So I'm in there spraying this deodorizer / water, no Scotch Guard, raking it in, and the lady's like, boy, that Scotch Guard smells good. Get back to the office, and I swear, Andy, CSI Carpet Cleaning was going to call at any moment and say, we just analyzed the fiber margin. Well, we caught you. It never happened.
You were just waiting for the guillotine to fall.
Right. And much to my surprise, I learned a very critical, albeit deadly, principle about the lucrative attraction of white-collar crime. Unlike bank robbery, where you hold court in the lobby with the cops often, the consequences don't immediately follow the crime, cheating on your taxes, lying to a bank about your ability to repay, whatever, and it reinforces the behavior. And at that age, I had carved a compromise, and I found out when I was running Z-Best that you save a lot of money when you sell Scotchgard that you never have to buy. And it was something, I don't blame Joel. I was more than willing, more than happy to comply. And that kind of thinking was all etched in my mind when I started Z-Best at age 16.
What do you think would have happened to your trajectory if Joel would have taken a different tact in that moment and said, you know what, we're just going to go back and tell the lady that we don't have it. We're not going to charge her for it. Do you think it would have set you on a different path? Because the fact you can remember that specific incident, I should say, this far from that, it seems like it might have been a pretty pivotal point in your life.
I can't explain it by detail, but I wanted to do what's right, but I was prepared to do what was wrong, even at a young age. And I can't tell you other than I think the Christian worldview calls it a sin nature. It's the most experientially verifiable fact next to gravity that I can think of, that I wanted to do right. I was more than happy, but I didn't realize, Andy, that I was fully prepared, Joel or no Joel, to do what was wrong. And I think there was enough incidents in my life beforehand, even though they don't come to mind as much, but even lying to people on the phone about what was in the service for the carpet cleaning, hyperbole was always a problem. So I think there's a lot of people that I run into that really do want to do what's right. They want to leave legacy. They want to be proud. They want their kids to be proud. But when compared to failure and public humiliation or whatever, bankruptcy, they're prepared to do what's wrong. And I live there. These are my people. I mean, I get them. I'm not judging. I'm one of them. So those are the ones I speak to. Those who think that they're above reproach and compromise, God bless you. I just don't live there. Never have.
I'm not saying I'm beyond reproach. I'm just curious whether or not that would have changed your trajectory. For those people that you say are your people, at the end of the day, laying in bed looking at the ceiling, do they go to bed satisfied? Do they go to bed happy?
Depends what day. There are good days, you could, the irony of fraud is the biggest person being conned is you because you start believing it.
Do you ever really believe it, though?
Yeah, I did. Listen, so let me tell you the story. Let's fast forward to I'm 21 years old.
Okay. Well, first, though, we got to go to 16 because you started your company. So
16.
Walk me through. You were working for Joel, and you're like, I got it.
No, I was working for Done Right Carpet Care. And by the way, I wasn't, Michael, did you hear him say, like, you're above? I didn't say, Andy, you think you're above. I'm just saying for people who think that they're beyond compromise.
Well, I don't want people to think that I'm about as flawed as a human being you'll ever encounter. I just want to make sure people understand that.
Well, Michael said that, actually, before. I'm just kidding.
I say
he
it all
knows.
the time.
He sees it all the time. He sees it every day.
So the mob involvement and the company I started at 16. We grew up in Reseda, poor.
Where is Reseda?
So it's in the valley, and if you ever saw the movie Ralph Macchio's Karate Kid, right?
Yes.
There was only one guy in the theater in the valley watching that stood up and clapped. Was me. It came out like 82. So he was the kid from Reseda. So Elizabeth Shue's parents from Tarzana said, "You're not going out with that kid from Reseda, are you?" And I'm like, we're on the map. Anyway, so I loved it.
Okay.
So I was, from Reseda. I think we were the only Jewish family in Reseda. Every other Jewish family was in Encino, Tarzana, Woodland Hills. And I went to a military school that we couldn't afford in 7th and 8th grade that my grandma paid for because I was a hot mess, back to long before Joel. Mm-hmm. And, but it actually was good for me, but it exposed me to, I had to duck in my car because everybody else was coming in Benzes and I was in Dodge Dart or something.
Kind of the haves and the have-nots.
Right. So then ninth grade, getting Temple handouts, getting the water turned off, having to call my friend, I'll never forget, Tony Seco, and saying, can I spend the night? I know it's a weeknight, but we have no hot water. So the family broke up. So I kind of made one. And my dad, you got to understand, my dad was the greatest guy ever. Only dad on the street that threw the football, baseball, played with us at basketball, came to every game. But he just didn't set the financial world on fire. But he was a great dad.
Do you think he could have changed your trajectory? Or do you think you are more set? I ask this from the perspective of being a parent with 3 kids. I have going on 16, going on 19, going on 21. When your kids are young, like, I got this. I'm going to mold them and shape them, and they're going to change the world. And as they get older, you're like, holy shit, I'm hanging on by my fucking fingernails here. Do you think your dad could have changed your trajectory, or were you set?
So I'll answer that by telling you what a great guy named Bob Schenck once told me. He said, there was this guy, and he had 2 kids, and he gave them everything, housing, plush surroundings, loved them, was there for them, walked with them, talked with them, and he they both rebelled against him, and he was perfect, and they were Adam and Eve, and that was God, and he's 0 for 2 in child rearing. I never forgot that. Your children can make decisions that are outside or beyond the scope of your love, will, or even upbringing. There's an increased likelihood of success when there's a dad like you that's present. I think, the statistics have, they're undeniable about the sad part, and the men I met in prison in 15 years. And they're not listening to a politician giving statistics on fatherless homes. They're owning it.
Yeah.
So, and wanting to do something about it, to their credit. But
it's hard as a parent to realize that I see so many parents, and I'm going to put myself in this bucket too. You feel guilty, or you feel responsible for the missteps or the misgivings of your kids. What did I do wrong? What example did I set incorrectly? And as I continue in my parenting journey, I'm coming to the realization you have far less control than it's an illusion. The illusion or the lie that we tell ourselves as parents is that our hands are on the wheel. I'm not so sure they are.
I would totally agree with that statement, because the hardest day in prison is Father's Day, not New Year's, not Christmas, not Thanksgiving. Father's Day, because we know the vacuum is being filled when Dad's not home. And it's typically not a great substitute.
Yeah.
So for me and my friends who were absent because of self-inflicted wounds, nobody to blame but ourselves, nobody to blame me. And my kids grew up from age 8 to they were in 9th grade when I got out without me. That materially adversely impacted their life, and you have to come out and say that. It's clear, it's obvious, and then you start from there and you rebuild. And, God returns the years the locusts have stolen. It's been wonderful to reestablish with my children, and I'm just blessed with and grateful. Mm-hmm. In the normal people who aren't in prison, I think that the realization that when you have done no parent is perfect. Your parents weren't, my parents weren't. But I think there comes a point in time where I don't think that you should tie your contentment, peace, meaning in life to the happiness of your whatever child, first, second, or third. However, I do think you should unconditionally love them. Mm-hmm. And the greatest thing that you can do for a child who's hurting is be there. And when you're in prison, you're not there. And prison is like dying with your eyes open. You see what's going on, you can do nothing about it. So a quote not unique with me, so been said before, but it's worth repeating. So I think, when I started, and back to when I started Z-Best, it wasn't a refutation of my father. I loved, and to this day miss, my father. But financially, it just wasn't his get down, right? So my mom either. And I love. So I determined broke ass is not going to be in my resume, no matter what. So that's not happening. So I'm not going to be broke, and I set my feet on the path of I will never let this happen. My kids have to, and they didn't do it vindictively. It wasn't like my dad says, "Yeah, I want to hurt my family." He loved his kids.
Yeah. Was
embarrassed by being a commercial real estate broker in 1980 when interest rates were 18%. So, started Z Best. Guy bookie hands me $1,600. Never seen that much money in my life. $200 a week, interest only. I was over cleaning his carpets. Knew him from the gym. Always looked up to him. And he said, I can't, you clean the showers at the gym to get your membership. I watch you on Saturday mornings because that's how Ed Stevens let me work out. And I just admire your work ethic. And I think if you want to start your own business, if anybody could do it, you can. I wish he would have not added the $200 a week interest only. It would have been a meaningful moment right there.
I think we call that the VIG.
But that was, you know what? There was a couple other of his customers. A guy had a company called We Sell Cars, bought my first car there, and we were in it together with the Jews loan. And then a guy who had a company, rental truck company. We were all friends, and we all had the same guy we owed money to. But we're grateful because nobody else has given us money. Listen, when you're 16, good luck. So
I'm lucky to have made it through that phase of my life, as are most young men.
So, yeah, but you had the wisdom to.
There's no wisdom at 16.
Right.
There's no experience. There's no knowledge. There is luck.
And the beauty of it for me was I was gonna make it. So long story short, went into business quickly, went into trouble. Had my mom telephone soliciting along with somebody else in my garage. I had to go to school by day. They'd set up appointments. I'd hire somebody to do them, and then weekends I'd do all the work, try to catch up. Couldn't meet payroll. Went to the local liquor store where I had grown up, Andy, from like kindergarten. My sister Sherry and I and neighborhood kids, excuse me, would go to Rick's Liquor and get candy. They treated us like Ben, the owner, was like loved us. Started a check cashing business. Knew I was in business. Knew I couldn't open a bank account because I was not 18. Go to any bank, they'd shut me down because you can't sign on a legal bank.
Yeah.
And he would say, "Bring your checks in. I'll convert them to bills, money orders. And I support you, Barry, in what you're doing." So he would trust me. Back in the day, they were general money orders. They were in a box, rectangular box, like that high. And I pulled one from the bottom. He would let me, and there was a machine, the machine, you go like this, to imprint the dollar amount. Prevent forgery, they thought. So he would trust me and say, "Calculate your checks, make out your money orders, then I'll sign them." He'd go in the back. So I can't meet payroll, I'm $300 short. I pull a money order from the bottom. By the time I get to that one, he goes, "I'll pay it back." The white-collar criminal is deceived because rarely until COVID did I see crimes for no freaking reason at all. PPP, they weren't trying to meet payroll, and law enforcement kind of throws in my face that I was wrong about the theory of most white-collar crime is, people put under economic pressure trying to keep a business running. They do the unthinkable. No doctor, lawyer, or accountant ever went to all that schooling and school debt to end up in federal prison. Wasn't in the plan. Something happened along the way.
That's your theory or law enforcement's?
That was my theory. And they're like, "Dude, you're naive." And then COVID happened, and people are ripping the government off.
Only for billions, though.
And I was like, I had to eat some crow there. But I've been wrong. I'm so good at being wrong. I'm well practiced at yeah, you're right.
Michael, do a little Google on the amount of money that was stolen from the federal government during COVID. It's in the billions.
Oh, yeah, it's 400, 800, something like that. I did some reporting on it at one time.
Zero checks and balances of any kind.
But okay, so hold on. And your point, Look, here's the scenario. You're shut. Let's say you're in Cali.
Mm-hmm.
And
So this is obviously a fairy tale.
and
So I got the fuck out of there.
yeah, but you barely got out of there at COVID. Cause
I got
you're
out there
outside.
early. I got it
Yeah,
about 4 or 5 years before.
yeah, he forgets the fact that his dear brother's stuck there still. So, okay.
I was born and raised Santa Cruz, so I had spent a good amount of time in California in my life.
And you have family still there.
Yes.
So you understand. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're in California. I'm going to ask you a question. If you're hey, look.
123 billion.
Look, nobody likes a know-it-all.
He just pulls it up. 123 million or billion. Wow. Loss represents 10% of the 4.2 trillion. Wow. Okay, so 10 cents out of the dollar.
So here's the thing. Let me ask you an honest question, and you answer. I know you will. You have a small business. Walmart's allowed to be open, the strip club and the cannabis club.
The essentials.
But your small business, now think about this, is not. Now,
No, I was joking. Yeah.
I know. And not everyone. Now, by the way, let me make a disclosure before I get these emails from these law enforcement people I speak to and do whatever. Not every crime was this. But could you imagine the rationale? Contemplation, rationalization, consent. That's the
Contemplation, rationalization.
Every
consent.
white-collar crime goes through that. We think about it. We rationalize it because we want to sleep at night, too. We're going to pay it back. Nobody's going to get hurt. Everybody's doing it. That was the COVID. So at least I was like one out of like 100 points, right? And then you make it, hey, I didn't ask for this. This is unfair. I need the money. I'm ready to work. They won't let me do this. This is wrong. It's disparity. It's prejudice. It's whatever. So I'm going to. Now, every person who's tried to meet payroll who went to prison for lying about what they owe or lying about what they earn, because that's all white-collar crime is. On a financial statement, whether you're a small business or a public company, if you lie about what you owe or lie about what you earn, that's it. That's essentially white-collar crime, financial fraud. When you do that, to meet payroll, your justification is always the same. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let Miss Jones and her family not get paid because of this. I'm going to do this because I'm not going to Europe with the money or Vegas. I'm paying payroll. Everybody does it. I'll pay it back. We're going to right this ship. We're going to get out of COVID. I'll pay it back. Nobody's going to get hurt. Today, you have the meeting payroll equivalent in every genre of life. Once you've established that thing that's the meeting payroll equivalent, everything's on the table. Lying, betraying your journalistic obligations. You know why? I'm meeting payroll. And whatever that payroll equivalent is, it owns you. You don't have a conscience anymore because right equals forward motion in this regard because I'm meeting payroll. Now, you just don't know my story or the villain or the burden. So as a former fraud perpetrator and now someone who uncovers fraud, this is what I see all the time. This excuse that my meeting payroll equivalent, sometimes it's literally meeting payroll, sometimes it's meeting earnings expectation if you're a CFO or a CEO, board pressure, sometimes it's analyst pressure, sometimes it's you're out of covenant with your bank and you don't want the loan call because people will lose their job. Believe me. And then you don't even want to get into politics where that's used because I don't do politics. But listen, if you have a meeting payroll excuse, you can do anything and sleep at night. It's conscience clearing. So with me, the COVID thing, I could see how, I'm not justifying it, but I'm just saying, but then you had people that just did it, to your point, and where I was wrong, because today's generation is different. It's opportunistic. In California, we have community colleges. They're wonderful. They're a blessing. You take your general ed. You don't spend a lot of money. People want people to go there. $7,400 Pell Grants, over $5 million stolen. They get the Pell Grant. They never show.
Yeah.
Why? Because everybody's doing it. Nobody's going to get hurt. My son told me when we were doing that segment, he says, yeah, somebody pitched me on this. I'm like, son, everybody's doing it. So that's just straight up what the government says is greed. They don't care about anybody, opportunistic But in my experience, and Andy, you got to forgive me because I'm old, it was always, and the kind of frauds that we target to proactively uncover, it's more the old school, you just don't know my story, right equals forward motion, I'm going to pay it back, nobody's going to get hurt. And if you think everybody doesn't jack valuations on buildings to get higher LTVs, you're naive. Yeah, that's how it goes.
No, the PPP stuff, I know a few business owners that use it for exactly that. Paying payroll, keeping their business alive. My wife actually was the recipient of some PPP money through her employer, which bridged her employment. And then
that was what it was for.
Exactly.
Legit. Save the day.
Yep. No issue with that. And then you go online and you find people who are buying Porsches and fabricating 100 fake businesses.
By the way, so Michael Francis and I are friends, and we made this joke about how fast the feds act when it's their damn money. So, no. I challenge you to find the more rapid, expedited indictment, prosecution, sentencing of any crime in the history of the world than the COVID crimes.
Really?
Oh, my God. They were efficient because it was their money. They wanted it back. I always say, I wish you would act that quick on our financial fraud cases sometimes. So, no, they to their credit, they very well, very thoroughly targeted, identified, and I'm telling you, it took, 3 years to get indicted, right? Took 3 months. Look it up. I mean, usually criminal indictments are forever.
I feel like there's still some of that money missing out there. I think it was a little bit of a bigger field to till than they've gotten their way through.
Is that an allegation, Andy?
Not towards you.
Okay.
Towards just in general. No, not towards you.
I wasn't there.
I'm talking about the
I was
COVID.
on probation at the time. I'll have you know I was tightly watched.
Yeah?
Closely watched.
I bet you with the Pell Grants with your son, I bet you there was somebody saying, I can help you with this and I'll just take 10%. Boom. You'll get your money and off and running.
Yeah. You're right. And perpetrators are opportunistic. And the government's position, and I can't speak for law enforcement's position on all crime, but in my experience, greed. Greed and shortcuts and lazy and immediate gratification. So you have a world that is divided in the one marshmallow now or 2 in 20 minutes study of famous. So I was and most people I met in prison or who have struggled with drugs, which I did the second time around, have one marshmallow now, and it's the 5-year-olds who are given the choice.
I think it's maybe 1 in 100 kids who chooses the 2 marshmallows in 20 minutes.
And they're the ones who are most well-adjusted.
Yeah.
But so I was the other.
So how did you end up on the wrong side of the law the first time?
So I was involved with the mob, 2 different families. When I couldn't get money, my uncle my uncle built townhomes. A mobster had bought one. I had the contract to take care of the carpeting. Met him. Long story short, gave me a loan, $25,000, $1,250 a week, interest only. Got a brown paper bag.
$1,250 a week?
Dude, I'm 18. I have 3.
That's a lot of juice.
I have 3 offices. I have 100 employees. We do not make wise decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I didn't. But when you're 18 and your collateral is carpet cleaning equipment, you have 3 offices, Anaheim, Thousand Oaks, Reseda, about 80 employees. I needed the cash. Banks weren't lining up.
Did you know what you were getting into with that guy?
Yeah, I did. And you know what? I have no excuses because I knew from like TV, and you take this step and it could mean your life. But watch this. My life was so equated with what I can do, Z Best, succeed, as opposed to who I was. The 2 were disconnected. That I might as well have been dead if the company had failed. Because, listen to me, Andy, there was no cable TV. There was no cell phones. I made it to the news, the local news, and everybody knew who I was. Hey, there's a 17-year-old, 16-year-old, started a carpet cleaning company. He's not on drugs. He's hiring people. And people would come up to me and give me the attention that I never had. Diners Club sent me a credit card. Took everybody to dinner in my high school that were the cool crowd that I wasn't a part of before. But when I was buying, Andy, I was in. And I made the connection that as long as I keep buying, I'm accepted. I'm invited, I'm wanted. And so for me, I wasn't the star football player on the football team, although in prison I was the quarterback, and we can talk about that at some point. But
is that a sexual thing? Or
no, I played. We played tackle, no pads. Yeah, no,
I bet you did.
Yeah. But we did have cheerleaders, full disclosure. But and they were men. But I digress. But anyway, yes, we played football in prison. So especially Inglewood, east, west, tackle, no pads. But the point is that I knew wholeheartedly what I was doing, and not only did I do it, another family approached me. One of Joel's friends that we knew together that did smogging and mechanics had no idea he was connected. He asked me to come to his auto place and said, listen, I know who you're involved in. I'm like, there's no internet. And he said, I can help you get out. And our family's a little more. My last name's Vigiano. I've done time. I have connections back east. And you're the goose that's laying the golden eggs for the wrong guy. He's trouble. So there was this sit down, and I went with this family. Then I went public. And basically, Z-Best was a company that lied about what we owed and lied about what we earned.
Both sides.
Watch. So here's fraud. Fraud is the skin of the truth stuffed with a lie. So if you ask me, did we really do carpet, furniture, and drapery cleaning, including me? Yeah. 1,200 employees at one time, 23 offices. All that was legit. But that was 12% of the revenue we were claiming. Some 88% of the revenue we were claiming was from restoration jobs, buildings that had been damaged by water or fire, that we had an adjuster. The mob thought the adjuster was just on the take. The jobs didn't exist. So the U.S. attorney calls me in, who later became a friend, and said, no one's going to believe this, but you got 3 clean audit opinions from 3 different accounting firms, because in those days, to raise millions of dollars on Wall Street in an S-1 registration statement, you need 3 years audited financials. Today, you can do a Reg D real estate offering and raise $1 zillion and never give anybody anything, but that's another story. So he said, you fooled all those auditors. Then the underwriters had their Big Ten lawyers on each side. You had a Big Ten law firm represent the company, and the underwriter did, and you fooled them. And he goes, I'm not complimenting you, I'm just stating a fact. And then, according to the IRS, you had 30 banks, 40 months, and $50 million in check kiting to create income. Where did you learn that from? I'll come back to it. And then the mob. So he said,
and
then,
you were how old?
I was, right, 1920.
That's what I'm talking about.
So I said, well, the mob, they were inoculated. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, they thought the adjuster was on the take, like New York. They didn't think the jobs were fun. He goes, so they thought they were real. They thought they were inflated, but they didn't think they didn't exist. As for Wall Street, that was a little more challenging, but the Oprah effect then. So I was on Oprah. I had a PR firm. And if you had media back in 85, 86, 87, that meant legitimacy. You know what I mean? That was imputed credibility.
Yeah.
Leverage that. So, and then learning accounting by design, because when I went public, the mob kind of made it clear that you're risking everything. You better succeed. So I learned accounting very quickly. Debits, credits, general ledgers, trial balance, memorandum journals, financial statements. I learned the percentage of completion method of accounting as well as the partner did. Why? To survive. To me, going public meant getting $19 million, $20 million in equity from Wall Street. I didn't have to pay the Ponzi off. Mm-hmm. Eventually go legit. And then my 6 million shares that were 60% of the company were worth $100 million, and I could sell them in 2 years. Go legit forever. That was the cure. Andy, in every financial fraud, there's a cure. It's a lie.
So the whole time you were telling yourself, just over the horizon.
If I could just make it. Every drug dealer tells me in prison, it was my last deal, Barry. I said, I totally believe you. We're not stupid. We want to sleep at night. If we can fool auditors, and I'm not proud of it, it's shameful, and went back to the profession to this day and help them identify financial fraud. And
how did you fool them?
So the ability to anticipate what they were going to ask, have the answer, and just play chess with accounting. So, okay, they're going to ask for example, let's say you have a restoration job for $1 million. The percentage of completion method of accounting, to this day, Andy, revenue recognition, and he can Google this, is the biggest problem on Wall Street. Soft fraud, because companies can argue it's subjective, it's not objective. Objective means you have a building, you sell it, you have this much profit, this much expenses, this is your net, whatever. Percentage of completion, it's a job in progress. So you could say, I'm 60% done. Who says you're 60%? Well, I say.
Yeah, I'm the one doing the work. I'll tell you what percentage it is.
And the auditors can't really do a whole lot. Our estimation on the $1 million job is we're going to make $200,000. So that would be, I get to claim, because $200,000 is 20%. So of the $200,000, I get to claim, since I'm 50% done, I get half that on my books. Haven't been paid a dime, but I can recognize revenue and jack my stock price, jack my earnings, make my balance sheet look good, P&L look good, statement of cash flows. And for me, it helped cover money I was paying the mob, expenses that I was trying to hide. So it was a whole game, and you learn by doing and not proud of it. But then you can take that and, uncover fraud because you know what somebody's doing because you did
it.
Right. That's exactly what we do. And when you do, for example, when we examine a Reg D offering on Wall Street today, and the Feds asked us to look at a couple, I would start with reverse engineering. I remember a friend of mine said, yeah, when law enforcement called me about you and he's, to help them with a particular case, I said, yeah, I don't think you're going to like his approach. What do you mean? Well, he's going to think like a criminal. He's not going to try to find a disclosure that you missed but he is going to find the fraud. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to like how he does it. He'll get you usable evidence, but he'll push you. But if you want to find the fraud, he'll do it. So I said somewhere in there was a compliment. But the point is, it's because as a crook, you think you were there. So if I were running a fraud today, the $6 trillion perfect crime today, so Z Best is in the past. The issue, I did 15 years in federal prison. So not a lot of people that, shot up a police station or burnt down a Macy's did that. So I got hammered. So anybody like my friends in prison, mostly African American, would say, don't ever listen to the haters. You did more time for a white collar crime both times than I can imagine, and than most violent people. You paid the price. So today, the perfect crime between 2021 and 2023, $6 trillion have been raised by Reg D offerings, accredited investor only, advertised on Instagram, social media, all over, 21% returns, IRR, targeted. Same returns they were offering in 2020 when interest rates were zero and inflation wasn't an issue. Magically, they offer today because they're immune to those kinds of things. So most 80% of that $6 trillion is real estate, apartment buildings, open air malls. You see them all the time. I save them. I have a collection on my phone, Andy. You can challenge me to show you my collection of Reg D offerings. So I'm like, this is, if I was a crook, how's this for a crime? All those financial statements that I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to fool the auditors because they're good. Believe me, in the 80s, auditors were good. Today, well, not so much as they were then, but they were A-game then. It was a lot of money to try to fool them. Today, you don't have to. Because a Reg D offering, because you're an accredited investor, which the SEC lowered the bar, not intending for fraud, they just lowered the bar. So I'm a promoter, and I don't want to get caught, and I want all your money, and you can't ask me for a damn thing. You can come to me, Andy, and say, I would like a financial statement on the apartment building to see, well, you gave me these projections that it was going to be a cash cow, rents, expenses, profit. Well, I would think you would lead with that evidence because you'd have unlimited funds at your disposal because you got the goose that laid the golden egg, the well-run apartment building or buildings. So you lead with audits. You want to raise money. They'll give you a projection of what it's going to do. You got nothing coming with what it actually did do, audited by an independent. They'll create their own numbers, perhaps, but some don't even do that. But you're certainly not going to get independent proof of profitability, and you're not required to, which is why it's the perfect crime. So right now, I can buy a building as a fund, and you're one of my investors. You don't even get to know what I paid for it, because I'm going to keep the purchase price. Stay with. Are you bored?
No.
Are you listening?
I'm listening.
Okay.
He's generally not.
I was just saying,
I'll
this
catch
is
him over there
compelling
sometimes,
stuff.
surfing the internet.
Anyway, you can conceal the purchase price. So that means you, Andy, my investor, can't hold me accountable for anything. I have Big Ten law firm that does PPM and offering memorandums by template, impenetrable. So when you hold me accountable, you said I was going to make 15% returns. No, I said targeted. You got nothing coming. Basically, it's a rat hole. And I put every risk factor so you can't do a damn thing and just shut up. And you're locked up for 10 years. Meaning you can't withdraw your money for 10 years. You're locked up. So it's the perfect crime. Why? We learned from Madoff.
But why would anybody invest in that?
I'll get to that in a second. So we learned from Madoff, the only way you go under is a run on the fund. 2008.
People pulling out?
Right. I'm a good crook. I learned from past fraudsters who failed.
That's why they lock them in.
Lock them in for 10 years. Many of them. So they lock them in. No audited financials. No independent proof of profitability as defined as PCAOB. Independent proof of profitability. An auditor coming in and saying, yes. And by the way, the internal rate of return that I tell you you're getting, watch this. I will tell you what I sold the building for, even though I don't disclose the sale price on the public record, but you never get to know most of the time what I purchase it for. The purchase price, why? Because I control the bid and the ask. It's the Wall Street equivalent of pump and dump, but in a whole different way. If I'm a Reg D real estate guy and I don't disclose the purchase price, guess what? I'm telling you, Andy, this building made an internal rate of return to this because I sold it for this. You don't know what I really paid for it, so you don't really know. But I told you I paid this. Just so happens that IRR is an average of 30.5% for the last 3 years. It's all nonsense.
I would never invest in something like that.
And you say, so here's why. Number one, social media. They target Gen Zers who are not financially sophisticated, but they perhaps qualify.
Who the hell invests off of social media, though? What a dum-dum.
Take a look at your feed.
There's no investment stuff in my feed. It's mostly people getting fucked up on, like, mountain bikes.
So if you were to ever search for an investment opportunity, you'd get the algorithm. And I do. I collect them. Some people collect stamps, sports cards. So here's the deal. It's my job to because I got to know what's out there. So my point is, here's the point. Regardless, people believe big names. They see them on YouTube or podcasts, and they have 1 million followers, and they're saying, we're making all this money, and here's proof. And you got 5 people saying, now watch this. What was my proof when I was running a Ponzi scheme at ZBest if I wasn't really earning money? That my investors were getting paid. What was Madoff's? What's every Ponzi scheme's proof that they're legit?
Returns.
Getting paid, right? There are no returns. It's a fraud. It's a Ponzi scheme, right? So, of course you're going to get paid. You know what the alternative is? Jail. So we pay you for 2 reasons. One, you don't complain and I don't go to jail. And you invite your friends. You become an apostle for the deal.
Marketing, yeah.
So somebody put a post not too long ago, famous guy. You can't fake cash flow. We just paid this much in returns. That's a crook right there. Of course you could fake cash. That's all a Ponzi scheme in the history of the world. Forget just Barry Minkow. You can look at James Lewis or Madoff. It's all fake cash flow because it was a fraud. So of course we fake cash flow, and so the Reg D real estate promoters pay you until they can't. They borrow without telling you the LTVs. You'll never know. They do one offering after another. Every red flag in the world. People are getting crushed. And they're about to get crushed. So it's the only reason I agreed to work with certain federal agencies with certain cases. But it's the most, if I was a perpetrator, there's no perception of detection and no perception of prosecution. You know why? Because they are hopelessly overwhelmed. No fault of their own. There are more frauds out there. I'll show you the phone. You're going to make me pull the phone.
No, I believe you.
And you'll see. And you're a regulator and you're like, I don't want to go up against this Big Ten law firm, which is why we have them. Because if you want to take us on, and sue us. You better be ready for a fight, and you better have smoking gun evidence. Enter former perpetrators who will give you just that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the value that you bring to the table. Why? Because way back when there was a gun to my head voluntarily, you get very creative. Necessity is the mother of invention. And I learned accounting for all the wrong reasons. And my friends used to say, the reason you know the securities laws is you've broken them all. Okay. So that's the leveraging your past to try to redeem for redemption, and that's the point. Does any of that make sense?
It does.
We lost him.
No. He's from a social media generation. He's probably been on it longer than I have, and maybe I have a pessimistic view of the world, perhaps, but I look at everything with maybe a little bit more of a conspiratorial eye. Not that I'm a conspiracy.
Tell me. Give me an example.
Just anything. Anybody. The people that I see who are flaunting their success the most, first off, I could care less if other people are successful. I actually like seeing people win. I think it's awesome.
Me too.
When I'm seeing them win and selling their program of how they won to other people, I'm just like, I would rather figure it out on my own than go into business with one of these people, which is how they pitch it a lot of the times. Become one of my partners. DM me this whatever term, and you can become. And I don't trust what I see online. It's not the real world. It's almost never been for me. The things I see online almost never line up with what I see in reality, and I just kind of remember that. But again, maybe I'm not the target audience for these type of particular investment schemes.
So let me ask you a question. Michael, he stopped looking at the porn while we're doing the interview. I'm grateful.
It's a minimized window.
It's minimized.
Briefly. Yeah, it's still up.
He's given up the porn.
Yeah.
Michael, let me ask you a question. If you were going to invest in a deal, what would you do? If any investment deal, real estate, oil and gas, whatever, and you're like, I got 10 grand, I'm going to invest. What steps would you take? Truth, because I know he would not lie about this.
He probably wouldn't.
Would not lie. Go ahead. What would you do? Would you know what to do? How to check something out?
Not really. I mean,
would you ask your parents?
That's a great question. Back to that's a full circle question. That was good because Dad's there, Dad's mentor, Dad's
yeah, I probably would. I mean, find somebody that's not the person selling to me that is knowledgeable.
Objective.
He's like a 40-year-old trapped in a 23-year-old.
Did I hear like I'd get somebody who's an expert in the field and have him probably say, is this tenable?
I mean, I'm not an expert.
No. I mean,
we know
the porn, the producing you are. So here's the thing.
But here's the thing, though, too, on those social.
That's a great answer.
But on social media, and here's the thing: for every person who answers like that, let's say there's 100 no's, they're looking for the one yes, and that's the thing about social media, right? The net is so wide.
But Andy, watch this. So watch this. Simple is best. I believe if you just dumb it down for me, and I can understand it, then I can teach it. We do what we call the 3 Ps on the fraud. We do a 1-minute thing every day. I get to be with my son and do it. I love it. My son Robert is 21 on the 6th. I have twin boys. Robert, you give him 10 things to do, he's bound to do like 3 of them. So I'm
those are good numbers.
Yeah, those are good numbers. I'm love my son. And 3 Ps: promoter, profits, produce. That's it. Promoter. Is this guy? It costs about $5, or I'll do it for free. Run a background check. Just a bit. Online today. Forget about. $75 for background.
Yeah.
They're like, you can get good stuff. You're not trying to get stalking. You just want lawsuits, liens. So if this guy says he's making 10% a month and he's got 5 tax liens, why does he need your money if he's making that much profit? So we always do promoter. 40% of the frauds today, I'm into proactive fraud uncovery. I don't want you to invest. Easy to give your money, impossible to get it back. So I exist for the purpose of stopping people from losing their money. That's all our calling is. So know who you're giving your money to. They look good. I sounded good. I had the...
so they get your money.
But if you do a background check, 40% of the time you'll see a repeat offender. By the SEC filed... It's okay, number 2, profits. Brilliant, Michael. Normally and regularly, do people in the carpet cleaning industry generate 30 to 40% gross profit margins? No, about 19. Normally and regularly, does the Forex market throw off 12% monthly returns guaranteed? No. To his point, whatever industry you're in, you take because it's never, you're not given an audited financial of past performance
of course.
by a reputable accounting firm. What you're given is projections and lies. But they always look good with computers and bots and data and social media and glitz. But the promoter and then the profits and then finally produce. People do more due diligence in the supermarket differentiating between a ripe banana and a non-ripe banana than they do when they invest their entire life savings in some deal.
That sounds insane, but I believe that.
I experienced that. And by the way, I'm sorry about I'm not sick or contagious.
Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, sometimes people cough. I had a stretch of about a month where I was fighting one.
How did you do it with this job?
Just turn your head to the side a bit. It buffers it a bit in the microphone. When did you know you were caught the first time?
I'm hoping I have a good editor.
He's not going to edit shit.
Mediocre.
Yeah.
I better turn my head.
When did you know you were caught?
It's a great May 22nd, 1987.
Do you remember the time of day?
The LA Times, back when there was investigative reporting. Dan Axt, a brilliant writer for the LA Times, behind WizKid lies trail of false credit card billings. Stock was at $18 a share. I had 6 million shares. We were about to do a deal with Michael Milken to buy KeyServe, our largest competitor, triple our size, $40 million plus $40 million in senior subordinated debt. Back in the junk bond days, they did that. And I lied to him about Jack Catay and the mob involvement. So he did a wonderful story on me, and then he found out right before I went public, because we made a disclosure, that I had done business with a mobster that, no longer, but we had to disclose it in the prospectus. He read that and said, this dude here, what else is he not telling me? And he was right. And he wrote an article to kill the offering, and it didn't work. We made it. And he's like, okay. Then he found a fraud that I did to meet payroll, because back in the 80s, if you inflate somebody's credit card on a charge today, it's by tonight.
Oh, it's not an instantaneous alert. Not back in the day.
84, 85, I had a 6-month float on those things.
I was going to say,
it was one of those machines where you go like this, and
yes.
And then they'd come in, you get an approval code, and then I'd add a 0 or a 1 or make the charge higher, and then blame it on a dishonest carpet cleaning crew. Just play the float. Well, it caught up with me, and I started to stop paying the people like an idiot. If I would have just paid everybody back like I had started to keep it going, but I was like, you don't think straight. And a couple people went to Dan Axe, and that article, 4.5 point stock drop that Friday. By July 2nd, I was bankrupt. By January 15, 1988, I'm still 21. I'm in prison, in the shoe, whole, 24 hours a day, Terminal Island lockdown.
Why were you on lockdown?
Because, even though I turned myself in, because I was on the yard. This is before MDC LA was built, right next to the courthouse. So there was some clothes in a unit in a just like this, right above my bunk, and they put us all in the shoe. And I was on steroids. I was 21, and I was on Anadrol and every other horrible thing that caused me to grow girls' breasts, and I had to get gynecomastia surgery. But in prison, I was very popular. Long story. Anyway,
for the tits.
Not funny. Yeah, the guys would tease me about that. But I got them cut out when I got out.
Yeah.
So the funny thing was, Lieutenant Navarro called me an SIS lieutenant. I said, Lieutenant, I can't stand being in this shoe here. These aren't my
What
clothes.
is a shoe? Is that like a wing?
So you're in maximum security. It's just like the most maximum security in any USP. You're in a cell, 5x7, 6x8, whatever it is. You have a toilet, a sink attachment, and a bunk, and you get 1 hour a day.
One person per room or two?
I had two.
Okay.
And me and John Hensley, bank robber with spider web tattoos, great guy. Great guy. We became good friends. He was wonderful. I love John Hensley.
Well, you had some time to get to know him, it sounds like.
Yeah, he was a good dude. And bank robber. so I did a year in the shoe. Why? Because I go to Lieutenant Navarro and I said, let me try these clothes on. I'm on steroids. Nothing fits me. These clothes fit like a glove, these guards' clothes. And he goes, they look like, I said, I want to see my lawyer. And he goes, now, and they never charged me. The guys' clothes who they were tried to escape 6 months later. They never charged me with that. Of course, the fraud charges, yes. And the mob thought I was going to testify against them. Mm-hmm. So they really wanted me in the shoe. And then Francis came along, and I hired Brooklier and Kenner. Brooklier's dad's a mobster. He's going to trial. Now, everybody thought I was such a stand-up guy. To go to trial, I was under the old law. I was facing all this time. I thought I was going to finesse my way out of a ticket with the jury. Like, I've fooled people my whole life. But I never encountered cross-examination and a mean judge, who was also later a friend, a good friend, actually, great guy. And I was rightfully convicted, and I went to prison like a hero. I got 25 years under the old, which means you do about a third. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, you're a stand-up dude, man. You went to trial. You didn't tell on the mob. You got 25 years. Your trial was on TV 4.5 months. You were the O.J. Simpson in 1988. I was. They stopped bullying. I mean, it was a high publicity case for all the wrong reasons. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm a narcissist who thought he could lie his way out of another con. I don't deserve anybody's praise, and only in this backwards thinking. But, it is what it is. So that was kind of rock bottom. So going to prison and then getting the 25 years. But Navarro later worked at Inglewood, Colorado, where it was a medium at the time. I did a lot of time there. He was in Unicor. We used to laugh about it. So it came full circle. But
how'd you measure time when you were in? Because you had 25
Super
years.
Bowls. I was a Super Bowl measurer. I did 8 Super Bowls in prison. They're like, dude, you're weird, dude.
Did you keep track of the day of the week at all?
Oh, yeah. Because in 89, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, the first bit when I was in, Pell Grants. I got a bachelor's and 2 masters from accredited huge Liberty University, largest Christian college in the world. And at the time,
while you were in, you got those.
Not
degrees.
only that, they had colleges coming in. I mean, Chapman College came. You can look it up, to Inglewood. Came to the prison. It was Pell Grants. It was great. Prison truly was at the time.
Did you spend most of your time then studying and doing school?
I did school, weightlifting, because Unicor. I was booked up solid. I didn't have time.
Full schedule. Mani-pedi, massage.
Now some guy named Maurice wanted to slow dance, and I didn't want any part of it. But other than that, watch Oprah. No, the point was I was very busy, and I didn't want to fail jail. I didn't want to leave the same way I came. Now here's the point. Every one of my friends I met in Inglewood, and some are still friends to this day. If you put us on a polygraph and said, are you going to repeat offend? We would have looked you straight in the eye and said, there is no way. We're not on drugs anymore. We're clear thinking. And drugs other than steroids weren't an issue for the first time. And we would be sincere. And I was out for 16 years. And uncovered fraud, was on 60 Minutes again, and great comeback story, and had 16 cases, almost $2 billion in fraud uncoverings, pastoring a church 14 years. And I betrayed my wife, my family, a incredible church family that treated me great. And I completely let them down. 14 years I was a senior pastor in San Diego. Loved the people, to this day still love them. And couldn't have squandered my comeback, second chance, more selfishly, narcissistically than going back to prison for insider trading for the Lennar case, and then subsequently the commingling funds. And I got to tell you, I must have woke up. Can you imagine this? As a pastor, I was living a double life. I probably committed 5 felonies a day, and I was sharing this in the chapel with my friends at Lexington. That was a transforming period of my life, 2011, 2015. And the church some people in the church were not forgiving me, and they were looking at, you're only saying sorry because you're going to get tax charges and commingling charges for what you did to the church. And the insider trading was one case. This is another. You're just trying to suck up. You don't mean it. By the way, I'm the only one in Christendom that you can actually question sincerity about. Forgive me. So I waited till the case was over, did the same thing. Said, forgive me, I'm wrong. I take responsibility. I have nothing to gain now, and still you're going to have haters. So and they would always get on my case in prisons that you're doing your time. You owned your sin. You're going to do another 7.5 years. That's a lot. You were out for 16 years, which made me a first-time offender. Because in the feds, if you're out 15, you're clean. So I was a first-time offender of my judge, and great Judge Seitz in Miami. I know you're not a first-time offender. You're a disappointment to me, Mr. Minkow. But I do want you to go out and uncover fraud. You're pretty good at this. The SEC just wrote me a nice letter. Peter Del Greco, a lawyer in the L.A. office, wrote a letter saying, yeah, he uncovered about $1 billion. While the enforcement division was prosecuting me, he was very nice. So he said, real quick, so I just, and Andy, just for the sake of thoroughness, living a double life, 4 felonies as a pastor. I remember sitting, Michael, in front of the church in a car across the street waiting for the mail to come. Because in the mail was some of the fraud, undisclosed bank debt, and I'm sitting there thinking, one day I'm going to write a book that's going to have a chapter that opens with, and here I was again, scoping out the church I was pastoring, waiting for the mailman to come, because what many auditors don't know, undisclosed debt, lying about what you owe, is simply in the mail. So whoever touches the mail, if the CEO has a big interest, there might be a reason for that. So, because you can't lie about your address.
Yeah.
So it was like, Andy, I was like, this is bad. And I know one day it's going to catch up with me. So no excuses. Never do I depreciate the significance of the people that I hurt or harmed, beginning with my wife and children who suffered terribly. And thank God I had the opportunity. God brought family back together.
How long after getting out did you start criminal behavior again?
It was, so I was asked this question the other day, and the truth is, and it's no excuse, I had something, 1995 I got out, got my second master's in 96, was the pastor of evangelism, associate pastor, doing an internship at Rocky Peak, and then took over March of 97, San Diego. 2 years into being a pastor. Wife left, wrote a letter to the board and said, look, he didn't cheat. I'm gone. I'm not coming back. But I just want you to know, I'm not a hater. He didn't have an affair. There's none of that crap. So keep it moving. Never saw her again. And here I wasn't perpetrating fraud, and I'm thinking, here I'm trying to run a church, and I was completely embarrassed, and the church stood by me, which made my crimes even more evil later, because I was rallied around. But something kind of internally was like, okay. In my mind, and I think men especially can point to a time where, I think it was Philip Yancey who said, the only thing worse than disappointment with God is disappointment without him. And here I was preaching, and I learned to compartmentalize what I was preaching, trust, forgive, and who I was becoming. And I was hurt, and it was kind of the justification, and I'm like, okay. And no excuse for what I did. A lot of men don't have near the support I had and suffer and come back and don't turn to criminal activity. It is no excuse. But if I'm going to sit here and look you in the eye and tell you, trigger for criminal behavior, that is not an excuse, but a time as clear as the money order at Rick's Liquor or the Scotch Guard in Mission Hills, that's it.
So did you go looking for criminal activity?
No.
Or did it happen to find you shortly thereafter?
Credit card with the church. I had a credit card. I started abusing it and using it to pay alimony. I couldn't pay the frickin' alimony, $1,400 a month on my salary. Then I started going to L.A. And
is that what commingling means when you're using the church card for personal use?
Undisclosed loan relationships, tax related frauds, financial fraud in general. So the whole gamut, simultaneously with the Lennar case, later with insider trading, but all justified because The church was growing. People were getting saved. And I was uncovering all this fraud. And the government owed me because there was no Dodd-Frank then, no whistleblower. I did it all for free. So, Andy, I got this coming. I'm going to pay it back. Nobody's going to get hurt. And the government acknowledged, he gave a lot of money back to the church. Doesn't justify what he did, and there's a deficit. So it's like a $3 million hit. Church had insurance. I upped it like a year before I fell.
A $3 million hit? How did the church not notice that?
Because most of it was a mortgage, undisclosed debt. It wasn't like, it was undisclosed mortgage debt. You lien property that's a nonprofit to your benefit, that's fraud. And that was that, plus tax, plus insider trading. The whole thing sucked.
What was the insider trading? I'm not familiar with the Lamar case.
So Lamar was a builder, and long story short, I had close relationships with law enforcement at the time. Found out about a criminal investigation against a particular builder. Every builder in 2008 had a criminal investigation that went nowhere. But I found out this information, opened an account in somebody else's name, and traded. So they found out about it, and I'm like, to the U.S. attorney in Miami, I'm like, dude, I lost money on the trade. He's like, Barry, just because you suck at trading doesn't mean you didn't commit insider trading. It's like you can commit bank fraud and pay the loan back.
Still fraud, yeah.
It's still fraud. So 18 USC. So the takeaway is, and here's what happens with the fallout. I do another 7.5 years, get hammered. And this is right at the time when nobody's getting indicted for the financial crisis of, but listen, no excuse. I was guilty, but I would get these letters from people. How come you were selectively? But well, I kind of betrayed my church and Wall Street, so I deserve it. So with the church stuff, after I was sentenced, and for the church-related stuff was like 2014, 2015, something like that, and I've been in since September 2011, never got out till December 18, so I did another 7.5 plus halfway house. I wrote letters to everybody saying, listen, the church was the greatest they could have ever been to somebody, accepting, loving, gracious, and I abused at that trust, OxyContin, unfaithful in my marriage, betrayed a position of trust, criminal activity.
This is when you were a pastor.
Well, I was pastor. And the cover for me was all the fraud I was uncovering. Law enforcement was patting me on the back because we were right about $2 billion in fraud.
Yeah.
But that didn't entitle me to break the law. And that was Z-Best mentality. I remember driving my Ferrari thinking, dude, you know how many people I employ? Speed laws don't apply to me. When I mentor people today, yeah.
It's an interesting jump in logic. But
No. When you are not, no. I mean, hold on. Let's go to the guru. I'm going to appeal to the guru.
All right. I know he wasn't talking to me. Michael, you're up.
So no. What I'm saying is there's an entitlement that comes with success. For every 99 people that can handle failure, one can handle success. Part of the reason for that is, you hear about movie stars think they're entitled. People who are successful in business, like, yeah, that law doesn't apply to me. I don't do the peon TSA thing. I'll do the private jet on borrowed money that I lie to get, but look at all the good I'm doing. This rationalization is evil and it's wrong and it's deplorable, and I practiced it. But I also see it a lot. And things don't apply to those of us who we think are succeeding, excelling, contributing, church growing, frauds being uncovered. So, of course, I commingle funds, but I'll pay it back. Y'all should pay me. All lies. Remember, we who perpetrate fraud, the greatest victim, ironically, is us because we're lying to ourselves and actually believe the lies. So, Michael, you want to hear the funniest story of your life? You got to hear, Andy?
I mean, that's a rhetorical question.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a true story. Andy doesn't know this. Michael doesn't know this. Happened here. I mean, this happened on this trip. And I'm going to
You didn't rob a bank, did you?
You told him, dude.
Started a Ponzi scheme with the homeless guys outside.
I was the first to invest.
Right. He's still got the...
Michael's an early investor.
He's doing good so far.
Yeah. He's in at the top of the pyramid.
No complaints.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to sum up my life after being 2 bits in prison, and I've been out for 5 years and God brought my family together, we're uncovering fraud. We got some very, the NRIA case, some other financial fraud cases have already been shut down, so I've been blessed, fortunate, better to be lucky than good, I say.
Yeah.
It's nice to have law enforcement come back. I was writing my friend at the SEC in L.A., who I love. His name's Peter DeGreco, and I said, I'm doing some criminal work for these guys. I didn't mention names or cases. And I said, somebody asked me, wife, why are you doing this? And it's because you want to make up for the guys back in 08, 09 who trusted you and you let down, and you're trying to. So maybe. But here's the point of my life. This is my mission, my legacy that I want to live. Because when you get old like me, not like me, it's all about legacy. With the boys, with my granddaughter, family, wife. I'm flying in from Vegas here. This just happened 24 hours ago. I don't know the geography of Montana too well. Haven't been here. Beautiful state. Love it. So the layover is in Denver. And I sat next to a couple that was from landing in Billings, and I was originally scheduled to land in Billings because what did I know?
You saved yourself about 8 hours by not doing that.
So he said to me, he goes, Barry, are you taking a flight or are you? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, Billings is 10 hours drive from where you need to be. I said, what? Now, number one, I absolutely was sincerely committed to boarding the flight from Denver to Billings. I had no presuppositional bias. I had no inclination that I was about to board the wrong plane. And here comes a guy who sits next to me. Now, there are two things I could have done. I could have said, what does this dude know? Look at his whatever, and then poked holes in him. Or realize that he had no motive to lie. He lives in the state. And in the past, I've been wrong before on some things that I thought I was dead on right, and very humbling. So I thanked him, and I rerouted from Denver to
Kalispell, yeah.
and there was direct flight. Now, when you reroute, it's going to cost you. Because United, I had a leg I lost, and then the return. And I had to buy the Delta ticket to California, and then back through Salt Lake to Vegas when I leave. And the story of trillions of dollars in fraud and people compromising their integrity and following in my footsteps for all the wrong reasons is I try to tell them they're about to board the wrong plane, that it's not going to get them to the intended destination that they're hoping, and they're sincere. They truly want to be successful. They truly want to get to Kalispell, but it's not the right route, and they're going to have to reroute. And in rerouting, there's a cost. And you have a couple choices. You could look at me and say, you're a frickin' ex-con, dude. I really don't believe anything you're saying. Or, this dude's done 15 years. Uncovered some fraud. He's been through some. Maybe I should consider that I've been wrong before on some very critical issues. So maybe I need to reroute my life. And for a pathetic person like me, who is not in the political arena and never will be, my one message is for those who have boarded the wrong flight and suffered the consequences, or who are about to, my message is this whole faith thing that I have in Christ and Christianity is not some God of a second chance, but of another chance and another. And the older I get, the more I need to embrace the grace and forgiveness and mercy that I need every day. And I try to get these people to realize this whole money, that you're only as good as what you can do instead of who you are, created in the image of God. That's the wrong, you're boarding the wrong plane. I've been there. That thing's got one ultimate destination. It's either prison or maybe death. And I so want you to reroute. And I got the perfect path. And I just tell them, hey, I love it. I got a faith that says everyone's invited. Everyone can meet the requirement. And we all end up in the same place.
Why do you think your faith didn't change your behavior the first time?
The problem of the sincerity of, I learned to compartmentalize what I did as a pastor, and I could literally get up on stage and preach a Easter message, and then one day later view something inappropriate on a TV station at that time. The ability to compartmentalize evil and justify it is something that I can relate to. But I think that what I learned kind of the second time around was the answer to that was kind of the light thing. When I was in prison the second time, the relationships I cultivated with John Whitfield as a pastor today in Mississippi, Biloxi, mentor to this day, African-American man, great friend for years. Damien Law, African-American pastor, went to the same school I did. I could look at those guys, and they were wearing green or brown or tan, whatever it was, and say, you know, I lied to my wife or my kid today on the phone because he said something and I felt like I had to. Whenever I defend myself, I just kind of lie. And for the first time in my life, I could be transparent. The greatest gift of prison was the answer I was always looking for. People I could actually say, I'm a frickin' narcissist, dude, and I have the propensity to be a very deceptive human being, and have somebody look at me and not back away, but say, me too, dude. That's why I shot that dude. And not even be fazed by it. But you know what? That was then. And I'm convinced that this faith we have, there's hope for us, mercy, and transformative power that gives us an opportunity. So the ability to have cultivated relationship, I would challenge anybody that if you don't have Damien Law or John Whitfield or somebody in your life that you can call them and say, dude, I watched something on my phone and I know porn's not intimately healthy for my marriage, but God dang, man, and say that, then it's only a matter of time, because that's when the compartmentalization occurs. Only when you don't have someone, and they don't have to be just ex-cons. I mean, I got Jim Litchfield, a friend for years, and I could say the same thing. So it isn't accountability. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about transparency, the ability to get off my chest and mind of who I really am, and it's okay, because he's wearing green too. And he's not judging me. He's not one-upping me. Can you imagine me going to a pastor's conference and saying, yeah, I'm struggling with sexual addiction? They'd be like, you know what I mean?
Would they, though?
Well, I don't know it, and it's not fair for me to say that, by the way. I'm just making a point.
I'm just curious.
I was always, you know what, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but I wouldn't know because I didn't have the courage to do it, because I bet you I had a board of, on my elder board, men that really would have helped me with OxyContin addiction, sexual addiction, financial issues in a minute had I told them. So you're right, that's not fair. But what is true is we convince ourselves that that's not available to us. But prison will solve that for you. And so the second time around, when your kids are growing up without you, the pain is so significant that that it was necessary for me to cultivate those relationships. They were very helpful, and they exist to this day. You can look at my social media and see who's on it, and they're on it for a reason, because people that I did time with that I love and were able to share my heart with, I could still do it today. Be transparent and know, dude, what's wrong with you? How could you still be? They get it. It's like, okay, your propensity is manipulation or hyperbole or whatever. Mine is different, but I'm not judging you, bro. We're in this together, so we got each other. You're not alone. Isolation is the reason I was able to get up there and preach one day. and 10 hours later be somebody else because nobody knew. I'm not saying they wouldn't have helped if I had told them, but I was convinced wrongly. So for me, I'm the guy who says, don't board that plane. It's going to Billings, and that's not where you want to go. No disrespect to Billings. But you got to get rerouted. And in the rerouting, you got to share your heart. And I mean really. So who really knows? You can't go to your wife and say, man, honey, dang, looked at the wrong pornographic material today. Probably not something that maybe the wife, but there is people in your, I'm not saying you couldn't or shouldn't, but I am saying that.
I think you can.
Correct. But for me, in prison, that wasn't an option. That was my point. And that's what the foundation was built. Yeah, you're right. My wife is, hey, the wonderful thing about my wife is she took me back, forgave me, and it's not, listen, truth plus time equal trust. It's a daily battle. I would love to say that, everything's perfect at home and I struggle and my kids are like, Dad, yeah, you're home. We know where you're home. We know where you're at all the time. You don't go to bars or this, but you're absent when you're present. You are the most detached, emotional, and they'll tell me straight up.
Yeah.
Need to hear it.
Yeah, I would rather my wife love me for who I am, not who she thinks I am. How
does that work?
Well, it works with being totally honest. I mean, it starts with, I think, the relationship. You have to start the relationship that way as opposed to telling small falsehoods that you then have to buttress over the years.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
You know what I mean? If you have,
I like that.
If the foundation of the relationship,
that's actually a good point.
I'm remarried. I went through a divorce a few years ago, and I had met my wife through jiu-jitsu. I knew her before I got divorced, and she saw me going through the divorce process. There's no illusions about I was not at a high point, to put it like that. I was at my lowest point of even just the way I thought about myself, my sense of self-worth, whether or not I was good enough person to be anything other than alone, a parent, all of those things. And I never tried to portray anything other than that, because if I did, and I wanted to be with this person, aren't they falling in love with somebody that you're not? That sounds fucking exhausting to me, especially over time. Because, like a 1 degree angle.
It's unsustainable.
Well, yeah. When you first start, it's just this little 1 degree angle, right? It's not like an extreme angle hockey sticking up. It's this little 1 degree. But if you spread that 1 degree out over years, the volume underneath that line grows and grows and grows and grows. And then say there's another one that's just a little bit, you know what I mean? Like a little untruth or a mistruth that you layer on top of that. I don't know how anybody can sustain that over time.
So,
and I look at it the other way. And not that I think porn is probably more of an issue for guys than gals, even though I know there's some gals that are into it.
Hold on. Check that stat. I mean, it's changed.
Really?
Check.
So
Barna's correct.
Well, my point being, I think about what conversation would I want to have with my wife. If she was struggling with something, regardless of what it was, I would want her to come to me and know that I'm not going to judge her for it and that there's nothing I wouldn't do to try to help her work through it. That's what I would want.
I mean, why would that be precluded if, for example, you had a mentor in your life that you shared certain things with? And
I don't think that would be precluded. But if you choose to share certain things with some people and compartmentalize that way,
okay,
and then not
go.
others.
There you go. Then you're having to think about, I got you.
Yeah.
You could be just straight up transparent.
I think you have to be, because otherwise it's lying by omission.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I told somebody else that. I'm like, okay, but you didn't tell me that. And I'm the person who, was spending the most.
I got it.
And again, I don't know if I'm wrong.
That's a good point, actually.
I don't know if I'm wrong or right.
No, I think...
I would like to think that if my wife was having that particular issue. Michael, what did you find about women in porn?
39% watch or reported to have watched it.
Okay.
That's up. And that's something, by the way, that,
I wonder why that is.
Well, I'm going to tell you why. The visuals to me, it's, well, I'm not going to pretend to speak for women, but what I'm going to say is the culture of the immediate gratification and the gratification in one area without relational accountability or emotional attachment. You can get one without the other if you do this. But I will say this. the church in general has been criticized that the 800-pound gorilla in the room is the statistics on pastors who have struggled. And I don't judge them because I was one. Zero judgment. In fact, I wouldn't even disqualify them. I'd say, here's how you get out of that. And you had a great testimony to share with people. And they're going to connect with you because you're a real dude, because you're going. The more transparent, to your point, the more real you become. And it's the truth anyway. So I've learned that in my life. But it's not talked about enough because it's embarrassing. It's difficult. And the women's statistic is out of control. The ministry leader. And I'm going to tell you why. Your emotional tank starts full, but when you're a pastor and people are hurting and you can't, the kid gets a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And it's at the end of the day, your emotional tank's empty. You could fill that with Christ, which is the right thing to do, or do what I did, OxyContin, or porn.
Or combo.
Right. They all work, but there's only one sustainable and beneficial to others and yourself. The others are just going to kill you slowly, and they did me.
How'd you know you were caught the second time?
Well, the U.S. attorney called me. Said, who's your lawyer? I said, why? I thought they were going to bust Lennar because I was like on a win streak. I mean, we were killing it with the, public companies, private companies, and, all ego, all lies, all hyperbole, but I was winning. Because at least as a liar, I knew a liar when I saw one in business and was more lucky than good. So whatever. And I had a good team, so I can't take all the credit either way. Oh, sorry. No gangster headphone look. I just
whatever works for you.
It's street cred. I need it, Michael. I need the guys in prison are watching. It's important to me that they.
Do they have TVs and phones?
Well, they have phones you're not supposed to know about, and yes, they have TVs. But the phones.
I figured they do.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't get 25 years for talking. And by the way, you want to hear I almost died in prison? We got to
Of course.
So all these frauds I uncovered, I go into Lexington. Fortune magazine does this 12-page article, comes out in December of 2011 on me. You can look it up. And in it, they talk about I have no co-defendants in this case. With the church case or the Lennar, just me. Nobody went down. In the Z-Best case, I went to trial. In this case, I had no co-defendants. So you're not a, quote, rat, because then you have problems. But in this article, I talked about all the convictions I got for the FBI, frauds I uncovered, and the entire compound turned.
I was going to say, do they view that as a different type of being a rat because you're working for the man, in air quotes?
So 10 days into they put me in the shoe and they said, you sign a piece of paper, we'll let you out. I said, what's the paper? Anything happens to you, you're on your own. Or you could stay in here. And I said, for 7 years, we're not going to transfer you. So I said, okay.
This was the guards telling you that?
No, the warden.
Because he knew. Or she knew.
High publicity, dude. Even the second time it was high publicity.
Yeah. So how'd you spend your time?
So I signed the paper. I go out on the compound. And all the friends that I had thought I made between September of 2011 when I went in December when the article came out, many turned their back on me, especially the mobsters and the white boys, but not the church, not the African-American community, and not a man by the name of Isaac Napper. You can Google him. He's on my website. 20 years he did for a murder he didn't commit. Golden Glove champion. Angola State Penitentiary. Toughest guy I ever met in my life. To this day. Reminds me of Tyson. He was in Cardinal Unit. They put me in Cardinal Unit when I got out of the shoe. He came up to me and, hey, I read your book that you wrote. I like it. Can you help me with my book? I said, I'd be honored to. Him, me, and a guy named Vino, we worked out together. And when you're with Isaac Napper, you're good. But it started to get a little rough. So,
what do you mean by rough?
Well, people made it known that they're like, dude, you're a snitch, and you better go lock up. Something bad's going to happen to you. Now, I don't care how tough you are, and you are because of being a Navy SEAL.
You'd be shocked.
But listen,
You would be shocked.
You're a lot. Yeah, you do a lot better than I did in the Cardinal bathroom, at Saturday night in a fight. But anyway, the issue was you're outnumbered, right? So it's the numbers that get you. So it's not the toughness. So the church, African American community, weight pile. I had a guy, Jeremy Grammer, was a detective, but he was black belt. So any guy that and he was Christian, just nice guy, looked like Kevin Costner, great guy. And he's like, I don't want any problems, leave me alone. And he gave me the greatest advice ever. He goes, Barry, I know you just came out of the shoe. I read that stuff. It's nonsense. What you did as a job. You didn't benefit from it. You didn't even get paid. So don't even trip. You need to get out in the yard. I said, get back out in the yard. He goes, yeah, the weight pile. Will you work out with your crew? He goes, people need to see that business as usual. Get back out in the yard. And I never forgot that. When trauma hits your life, the first inclination is withdraw. Get away from all your friends that'll encourage you. Exercise that'll give you the endorphin. Getting back out in the yard, no matter what happens, is critical. And it was great advice. And then Knapp said, and you can email him, he knows the story. He took me to every unit, and everybody listened. The lieutenants had his hands were a deadly weapon. He wasn't allowed to hit anybody because he was that lethal. Remember, Golden Glove, 20 years, murder he didn't commit, got out, and then did a drug deal. He got 24, and the media's like, we should let the guy go. But the feds, he was at the end of his sentence the last 5 years. And he took me to every unit. He said, let me give you guys a clue. This is my friend Barry. So if you have any problem with him, come to me. Second of all, he did 25 years, went to trial for 4.5 months. He has no co-defendants in this case with his Lennar or the church. And let me explain something to you. He was a licensed private investigator. He uncovered fraud, probably saved your grandma or a family member from getting ripped off. So instead of threatening, you should be thanking him. He never benefited. And a snitch, in case you didn't know, is somebody who tells on someone to get less time for themselves. Show me the benefit, and I'll beat his ass right now. He made no benefit, you big dopes. And nobody said a word after that. Church stood by me. I'll never forget that. We're friends to this day. And there were people that may have, most just got over it, and they're like, yeah, that does make sense. It was his job, and he didn't benefit. And went back out in the yard, and I learned a lot about loyalty and faith. Because remember, there's 2,000 people in Lexington in 2011 for 1,300. Supposed to be, we had Weight Pile, one of the few federal facilities that did. And you really learn who your friends are. And it was a big moment for me to overcome that and to have the church and the guys rally around me. And the African American community is just amazing because I would teach stock classes. They're like, show me how to short a stock. I'm like, without the prison, so we would meet on Saturdays in the chapel for like 2 hours, just me and big Andre Jenkins, the best built 6'7" from Ohio dude I've ever seen, and him and Larry Hooks and me and all friends to this day. It taught me a lot. And what it really taught me is to not compartmentalize, that I could tell the truth and not have it held against me, so it helped.
I mean, I think if COVID taught us anything, it's that isolation is
right.
The beginning
I never
of the
made
end.
that connection, right?
Suicide rates through the roof, people trapped in relationships that they couldn't escape from. It was not awesome. How'd you spend your time that second time around?
Oh,
because you already had your degrees.
I got a doctorate.
No shit.
Yeah, I got a doctorate from Trinity, not the prestigious one that's in England or wherever, but the other one. But it was good, and it was a good program. I wrote a dissertation. I got an honorary doctorate as well, but I think they want it back, Michael. They gave it to me in 2010. Then I got indicted. They're like, dude, give us this thing back, would you please?
That's fair. That's fair.
And what I really did was, bro, I'm going to tell you, they found out I was a preacher in Lexington, and they're like, yeah, you need to start teaching Bible study. I said, yeah, probably not. No, you really do. We heard you can teach good. I got one of your tapes here. Dude, we got it, because they used to give them in the prison. So in Lexington, I started doing Bible studies, and then they'd have me preach on a weekend. And then in Atwater, 4 years I was pastor. But here's the point. I learned something. I said, I don't deserve this because of what I did and betrayed the trust of my church. And this is no less a church than the church I just betrayed. And he said, don't worry, we're not going to take an offering or anything. And here's, by the way, we believe you were called to be a pastor, and I can't find a verse that says you ever become uncalled. So get your ass up there and teach us. And I never missed a week. Well, I taught through Revelation. I enjoyed it. I loved it. These guys in Lexington and then Atwater transformed my life. They knew who I was, and I mean everything. 2-time loser, embarrassed, affair, betrayed a church, and they still loved me. And it was like, dang, this is what it probably was always there had I just come clean. So that's part of boarding the wrong flight is you think you can't share, and been on that route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you're still capable of the things you've done previously?
I think I wouldn't even tempt myself with being in a position of trust like that. I kind of love my life now in that I'm hopelessly irresponsible, like Michael, and have no. I think so. I was on probation for the first 3 years. I get audited every 2 years. Good accountability. I pay 5 restitutions a month. By the way, Michael, I'm late. I forgot to mail my restitution before I came here. So if you'll write me a note, he'll write me a note. So
is that just paying back? Not really familiar with restitution.
So I've never missed a payment in.
That's paying back to a victim, though, of some kind, or
victims. I never missed a payment, and we went into a voluntary settlement with the government proactively and never stopped paying and did the amount they asked for, and because part of the faith would be, the whole Luke 19 where Zacchaeus is a white-collar criminal in the New Testament, and if he looks to Christ, I made restitution. And I'm thinking, white-collar crime, restitution, I don't care how much time. Because people say, you served 7.5 years twice. You don't owe these feds nothing. Sure I do. Not on that kind of time. I do need to make restitution, so I do. Set amount, and it's not small. It's material. Mm-hmm. So don't have any aspirations of being the president of a bank where I can do fraudulent loans or a Reg D offering or a position of trust that would put me in that kind of position. What I do like doing is, and, when the feds called and said, we want your help with a couple of these cases that, Lord willing, you'll read about not too long from now, Lord willing, there's accountability there. They're not going to let you play games and abuse the position of trust again. They're not stupid. So I and my family, it's like, I'm going to tell you, you heard of this gas station heroin that they have? It's called look it up, Google it, tell him, tantamine, whatever.
Is this one of those things you can get behind the counter?
Okay, so 2021, I'm managing a emergency shelter COVID for Hope of the Valley, where I worked as a homeless service provider. Actually, I was just finished managing. I was still there 3 years. Great organization, loved them. They really tried to do. The founder, Christian Kent, great organization. And what happened was I was on the radio on the way to work, and I heard about gas station heroin. And I was addicted to Oxy. Now, remember, if I was addicted to Oxy today, like I was in 2008, 2009, I'd be dead because it's fentanyl.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't. So I was chewing 80s, and it was bad. So it's not an excuse for my criminal behavior. It just needs to be disclosed. So somebody asked me the other day, what was your biggest temptation as you've been out? Financial? I said, nah, not really. I'll tell you what it was. 2021. And I heard about, what's it called, Michael?
Tianeptine.
Yep. Buy it over the
Sounds
counter.
healthy.
It's not banned in California yet. And I was living in California, but it's banned in certain states, but not. No, you have rehabs for this. It's wicked. You have people that are in rehab, and you can buy it over the counter. It's used as an antidepressant in certain countries, and it's under a nutraceutical, I guess, umbrella in some states here, including California. So I'm like, no prescription, no lying to doctors.
Easy access.
And guess what, Andy? How bad could it be, bro? I could buy it over the counter.
How'd you stop yourself?
My boys, Robert and Dylan, looking at them, because winning them back meant not lying when I said I'm on a diet and I have one cheat day, and for 5 years. It hasn't changed. Training, and they train with me. what I always wanted them to do, and building their trust, looking in their eyes, and just actually, for the first time in my pathetic life, loving them and my wife more than me, which is saying something, because when I was in high school and married Diana, who weighed 300 pounds, had a crush on me, I would always talk to her. My friends would say, dude, what's wrong with you? I said, we have a lot in common. They said, what's that? I said, we're both crazy about me. How bad could she be? I love Mary Diana. I don't care how much she weighs. We have a lot in common. We're crazy about me. So, but for the boys and Lisa, after being accepted back, something connected with the law of the greater love. And believe me, I had it planned out. And then I thought to myself, really, how long was that high on Oxy at some point? Because you know what you're doing at the time you're taking. You know when you have to take it again. You know when you have to stop. You know when you're going to run out. A constant chase. So the opportunity cost, sorry. But the boys, Lisa, and I was not going to go out in my faith again like a punk ass. And you know, Damien Law, Michael, you'll call him and verify this. I'll give you his number. Great guy. I just talked to him a couple days ago. He said, you know, Barry, I want you to do something before you leave prison. I want you to take prison with you. Somebody, what are you talking about? You ever notice in the 2 bits you did 15 years, you never had one disciplinary action, not one. You got 18 degrees. You helped men get out of prison, mostly my men, motions. You never charged. You helped people. You were like living a life that you probably ought to. You do well in structure. Take that prison structure home with you, minus the institutionalization, and keep that structure, because you work well under it when you have free time. You're evil, and it's over. Keep the tight schedule, structure, positive accountability. Church, so we go, boys go to church.
Yep.
Yeah, it's structure, and it helps me. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
So it's like prison was great, relationships, structure, was able to succeed. Weird, but I hated not being there for, the people who need me the most, that I let down, that I betrayed.
When you're looking at it all in the rearview mirror now, kind of like encapsulating all those past experiences, what do you think about it? Do you look at yourself as a good person, a flawed person?
So there's an old saying, I remember teaching, a lot of us view ourselves as a good person who occasionally does bad things. And the greatest experientially relevant, observable, scientifically, doctrine is the doctrine of human depravity, as taught by We're Sinners. Nobody taught my 6-month-old grandbaby, Selena, how to scream, yell, and say, I, me, mine, and be selfish. It's in us. So why the world teaches you're a good person who occasionally does bad things. The truth is, I'm not a good person who occasionally does bad things. I'm a bad person who might occasionally do something good, but in desperate need for salvation, direction, wisdom, mercy, and grace. And I think way too highly of myself. The self-esteem movement, I'm really not that important. My opinions really don't matter that much. I'm really not who I think I am in my own mind. In fact, I'm worse than that. And the best thing I can do to help somebody else is lead them to somebody who is. And it ain't me. And it's not a false humility. It's freaking reality. Experientially verifiable by anybody who's ever had children. You don't have to teach them to be sinful and selfish. We're not good people who occasionally do bad things. That's every other worldview. The worldview of the Christian faith is we're bad people in desperate need of salvation who might occasionally send our mother roses from death row, but we're in desperate need of salvation. And when you realize that, you know how grateful you are for forgiveness? When you really realize how much you need it? But it doesn't really matter if I'm really not as bad as Barry Minkow. And I'm not a two-time loser. And I'm not as bad as that dude who just shot up that town. And we play the comparison game, and in so doing, we forget how selfish we are, the things we leave undone, the judgment, the meanness, maybe even the prejudice, or the just the sheer selfishness, whatever it is, if we're honest and not defrauding ourselves. We're bad people occasionally do good things. We think way too highly of ourselves, and we're in desperate need of grace and compassion and mercy, and I'm chief.
Would you change your past experiences if you could?
Only to be with Lisa and the boys more, yes, but I think they...
Maybe you wouldn't be if you changed those
I
experiences.
know, I was just...
It's a Faustian gamble for sure.
So what do you say?
Michael's like, I'm 23. I have fucking zero life
smart.
experience.
Dude, he's smarter than both of us.
He
guessed
yeah.
the investment thing. You get an expert. Who the hell knows that? Did you?
Michael does.
Well, I didn't even tell you.
I would say, I mean, I guess you wouldn't be here in this position without what you've done before.
Yeah, but I don't recommend the route. I mean, I hope you, and that's the part of the thing. If there was somebody who could have talked me out of it, or I don't know.
I don't know if that would have been possible.
I know.
And that's the thing. You know, maybe let's say it was possible, but in doing so,
I'm pretty pragmatic. I'm not that dumb. I can see if this is going to get me in prison or dead, I might think twice about it. I mean, I'm just thinking maybe. But you're right. I was hopelessly irrational, and most of us who are lost and separated from wisdom forget the implication of that is we don't make wise choices. Yeah. Thus, isolation. So if you and I are partners and we have a falling out because Michael told you that, well, you know, I did something wrong, and I don't have you to go to for advice or whatever, I'm separating myself from wisdom that would help me make better decisions, ergo.
The key to that is that you don't tell Michael shit that you shouldn't be telling your partner.
Michael would do good in prison. He's a straight-up gangster over there.
Oh, he's got a tight turd cutter on him. He would do great. So we'd get him some pants. He'd wear them backwards.
He'd be great. So I wanted to, Michael,
Yeah.
thank you for having me. If you keep the hair transplant thing in there, we're done. But that's all right. You do what you do.
We'll trim it out. I'm responsible for all that.
And a total honor being here, Andy. Thanks for having me very much. Thanks for what you've done for our country, for your show, and for having me here and let me, you know, tell the good, the bad, and the ugly, and most of it's bad and ugly.
I think that's true for most of us. I would agree with you that people want to believe that we're good, and sometimes we trip and fall. I think for most people it's the opposite, like you described. When you trip and fall, it's forward and you do a little bit of good, and you're trying to like stem back or hold back the bad.
Oh, I need to write that down. Forget the Scotchgard car house carpets. That's better.
What do you want to leave people with? I'll give you the final word. Obviously,
so we
definitely
end the show
by saying definitely invest on Instagram. Like that's the best source for valuable, 100% truthful investment guidance.
So, idiot. I was already.
Yeah.
So, no, we do a show, The Fraud Minute, and, you know, one of the things I always end with, even though I only go for like 80 seconds at a time, that's my attention span, by the way.
Longer than most.
Well, Robert, you know, Robert's, and during that 80 seconds, I got to make sure Robert's with me the whole time, which is no small task. Love doing that with my son. I never thought that would be possible. So I would leave with this, and that is the same thing I leave the show every day. I try to make this point. I really don't care what you've done. Because the truth is nobody really knows what you've done, only you, and I don't want to know, and you don't need to email me or tell me, but there are people out there carrying burdens that you have no idea. When I was a pastor, I learned that to be true, and more importantly, in prison for 15 years, I learned it to be true. the quote scandalous things that cripple the conscience and kind of take people out of play because they're constantly reminded of, you know what you did do, nobody else does, but we know where the bodies are buried. Sometimes that's literal. Most of the time it's figurative. In either case, it's crippling.
I think it's actually more crippling when it's figurative.
Yeah, I agree. And I want everybody to know that you didn't betray Jesus Christ. I did. I used to tell people in Lexington, dude, they would say, I shot this dude. Or I said, bro, I was a pastor for 14 years. I ripped off God. So let's get this right. If there's hope for if there's hope for me, let me just tell you, if there's mercy for me, forgiveness for me, how much more for you? I knew better. I was on my second chance. I was around loving, wonderful people. I really have no excuses. Wish I did. But I went into drugs and all this crap. And I just want you to know, no matter what you've done, I promise you, there is mercy and forgiveness and hope and salvation, because good people don't go to heaven. Forgiven people go to heaven, and everybody lives forever somewhere. And when there's a thief on the cross and he's never been baptized, circumcised, did a good deed in his life, and Jesus, right before his death, says, today you'll be with me in paradise, because he acknowledged that Jesus was sinless. He deserved to be there. He acknowledged him, and he got saved. Right before that's mercy. That means that good people don't go to heaven. Forgiven people go to heaven, because everybody lives forever somewhere. And that is the distinctive about the faith that I used to talk about, but now wholeheartedly, experientially embrace. Good people don't go. And by the way, there are no good people, just between us. Forgiven people go, because everybody lives forever somewhere. And you just need that forgiveness. And oh, by the way, it involves a simple acknowledgement of what you've done. You got a Savior. He's substitute for you, and you're in. Everyone's invited, for God so loved the world. Everyone can meet the requirement, for whosoever believeth. And we all end up in the same place. I go to prepare a place for you. Is that fair? That's a good deal. That's not biased towards Jew or Greek. No matter what you've done. And do not let the hunting. What did Hobart Maurer say in the American Psychological Association article in 1962? The haunting specter of guilt. Broken, gone. You're released from that. And I love you, and I don't care what you did. You're my people. Especially if you've been in prison, you're a drug addict, you've been, failed 100 times. I love that guy or gal, because I totally relate in being a multiple failure over and over for a sustained period of time, to where there was no hope and then had hope. So I'm with you. There's people that'll stand by. I'm one of them.
Perfect ending. Where can people find you?
Well, Michael, where can they find me? We do the Fraud Minute, so it's 1 minute on fraud.
What's your handle? What's your social media name?
At Minkow Berry on Instagram. Or the 1 minute on fraud is all one word on TikTok or YouTube, whatever. And then we have the It's Your Stomach thing. We'll launch that. We'll do that another time. But so we do the 1 minute on fraud. Try to keep people from losing their money proactively.
Yep. Yeah. Easier to not spend it than claw it back, for sure.
Right. I like that. See, you guys are getting pretty good at this whole fraud thing. You want to start a carpet cleaning company? We'll call it Z Better. What do you think, Andy?
I mean, Michael and I already have many online businesses.
Michael's like, I can make money. It'll be big.
We have many investment strategies for people online. Just hit us up and you can get in at the ground level.
I'm in.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for your time, Barry.
Thank you.